Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
My guest is Charles E. Butler. He has been to the lair before, so he knows where the water puddles are. So there's no excuse. He's pounding away on his keyboard, which I can hear. Welcome back to my lair.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pounding on the keyboard. I'm typing about the old television Frankenstein movies at the moment. Tales of Frankenstein and the Tales of Tomorrow with Lon Chaney. Have you heard of that one?
Not really. Not the Tales of Tomorrow with Lon Chaney? No.
Well, Tales of Tomorrow was made in 1952, and Lon Chaney Jr. was playing the monster for television.
Oh, okay.
And in those days, they filmed live, as you know, and the notorious story about this one is that when he went on, he was drunk as a skunk, or a rodent, or whatever you say over there.
I am aware of this story, yes. Okay,
and
yeah.
He thought they were rehearsing, and he was supposed to break furniture all over the place. He's setting it down really gently and swearing like a docker. So amazing stuff. Good.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very belligerent, intimidating monster in there. It's really good.
I think the kid never got his credit. I think he was an excellent actor. I mean, he proved that in Of Mice and Men. But everybody wanted Lon Chaney Jr. They didn't want Crichton Chaney, And that's the real sin of that, his life. He was a good actor. It's just a shame. So you got a new book out. What? It's about werewolves, which Lon Chaney Jr. is famous for, right?
He's famous for the Wolfman. It's called Werewolves, and it talks about 20 different werewolf films ranging from 1935 Werewolf of London with Henry Hull.
I love that movie.
And it finishes with Benicio del Toro's The Wolfman, 2010.
Yeah. I love that, the Henry Hull movie. And it's kind of, the Benito del Toro one kind of worked the same idea. They had gone into the mountains and they found the flower, that kind of thing. So they kind of blend those two movies a little bit, didn't they?
Uh-huh. It sort of comes full circle with me as well, because I started watching films really in the 70s, early 80s. And early 80s was when we got The American Werewolf with Rick Baker's makeup effects, and The Howling with Rob Bottin. And The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro is possibly the last time that Rick Baker did a werewolf film. He decided he was going to retire after that. So I've come sort of full circle of all the werewolf movies, from Jack Pierce through to Rick Baker, Dick Smith, and we finished with Rick Baker's werewolf effects for The Wolfman.
Yeah, so, I think that when as far as the werewolf movies go, I think they got the cream of the crop for makeup and all of that. I really liked the Del Toro one, the last one. I really liked it. What did you think?
I love it. I honestly think it's a better film than the original.
Oh, no. But I'll beat you up for that one.
Well, it's in the book why I think so. But obviously, the script that Kurt Siodmak wrote for the original is iconic.
Yeah.
He brought gypsies in, he brought in the pentagram, he brought in the full moon, has been a catalyst for the werewolf. He brought in all those things that people today believe are genuine. He brought them into like a different folklore that had gone before. It was brand new at the time. Mm-hmm. The only thing that spoils The Wolfman for me with Lon Chaney is that it's very easy to parody. Right. You have those lines he gave Lon Chaney, and Lon Chaney says them every single film. 5 films later, he's still saying the same lines. When the moon's full, I turn into a wolf, and it gets a bit crazy.
So do 500,000 other guys.
That's Luke Costello. That's my favourite comeback. I love that one. Another guys. Yeah. My favourite line of Abbott and Costello is Bud Abbott when he goes, "Help me a little bit. Do I have to do all the work?"
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, they took that to a whole new level, and it was very hard for Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. because they were accustomed to being like regimented, and these two guys actually had actors coming in and pulling gags on them to break up the monotony, and these two guys were not accustomed to that.
They were the first double acts, I think, to do that. I mean, you've got it all over. You've got it all over today, television and things like that. We started in the 70s with Morecambe and Wise. We have Anton Deck. I mean, they're British comedians you probably never heard of. And they in the 70s, Morecambe and Wise had all the big name stars on their shows. You know, the big thing was that they came on and didn't get paid anything and things like that, and it went down really well. But Abbott and Costello were the first comedians to actually do that, to build themselves with famous faces, and to make a big career out of it at the time.
Yeah,
Unseen before in 1948.
Yeah, they were smart. They were smart guys. You know, when people say, "Oh, comedians," are they're just jokesters. It's very hard to be funny. It's a lot of work to be funny. It's a lot of work to have that timing. And when you meet these guys in person and then you go, wow, they're not really very funny. Robin Williams is a perfect example. People said if there was one person, if he was in a room with one person, he would just sit there. Get two more people in there, and he was on. And I think that's true of a lot of comedians. It's almost an alter ego. It's very hard to be funny and keep that level of excellence. And Abbott and Costello did it.
I think it was Robin Williams that said it. It took an elevator ride, or a lift in Britain. It took an elevator ride with Woody Allen, and both of them just stood looking at the floor for about 10 or 15 floors.
Yeah. I mean,
word.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at other Johnny Cash, put Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson in an elevator, they'll be, "Hey man, how you doing? What are you doing? You cutting anything?" You put actors and actresses in. Are you doing anything? Is there a part for me? Comedians are not like that. Jerry Lewis is a very quiet man.
I've been watching videos of Jerry Lewis. Sorry to interrupt.
I love him, but I love his serious stuff where he's more serious. I think he's wonderful. He's amazing, and I'm not so crazy about the Crazy Professor and the ouch, where he's doing the silly. He's a good serious actor, but again, he's very quiet, and they say interviewing him is very hard because he's always very careful.
You should. I'll give you the link to a Jerry Lewis video that I watched the other night. He obviously didn't like this character that was interviewing him.
Right.
And one of the most deadpan interviews, one-word answers, nothing, and then he tells them all to clear off at the end.
Yeah, really. And
that was hilarious.
It's, comedians are, it's serious work. It's serious work, and I think it's because we always think that they should be on, and it makes it really hard, So getting back to Lon Chaney doing Abbott and Costello, the werewolf in there, there's a couple of takeouts where he's actually saying, and now your line is this and your line is that, because they missed the cues, because he was such a serious actor.
That's new to me. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a takeout in Zacherle's horrible movies or something like that, and they're talking. It's the room where he's you're Chick Young, and and who are you? And then Costello messes up a line or something, and then all of a sudden Lon Chaney just stops dead and said, and you're supposed to say this, and he was not used to them, but he carried himself well. And so are you almost done with the monster genre? Are you going to go on now to Pukas, or are you going to go on to Banshees?
Well, as I said, I'm doing a book on Frankenstein movies now, the Universal ones and the Hammer ones. Then I'm doing the Phantom of the Opera movies.
I love the Phantom Opera.
And I think I might be doing a devil possession movie. You know the devil movies?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them, but I know them.
I might have 3 books left for the horror films, which I think I should explain what I actually do. Then they are review books on different films, but they're just my basic reminiscences.
Right.
I remember what I recall, what they did for me at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not affiliated to any sort of film studio or anything like that. I don't call up Peter Cushing at dead hours of night and say, hello, Mr. Cushing, how did you feel when you did this bit and stuff? But I do talk, and by all accounts, they're very entertaining reads.
They are.
Good. You've got some books anyway. Have you read them?
Yes, I do have some books. I'm glad you remembered that.
Yes, it cost me a hell of a lot to post them.
Yeah, I'll send you my right arm. Actually, I'll send you Teddy. You can have Teddy. You say in your little bio, a man of talents, most of which are largely ignored.
Oh,
yes. Aren't you supposed to tell the world how wonderful you are?
I am wonderful. You tell him.
He's wonderful. It's amazing.
I am actually wonderful, but nobody notices it because when I go out, I'm like Robin Williams looking down at the floor, going riding elevators. That's it. I'm just. You try to stay normal and you can't. So you let it all out in different ways. I draw, I write, I act. Sometimes I haven't done it for a couple of years, but I do everything along that spectrum. It's not a case of keeping busy. It's a case of being creative and productive.
Yeah.
But that doesn't bring in the dollars, so I have to go to work.
Yeah, it's always eating and shelter. They're 2 big problems.
I don't eat in shelters. I live with my sister. She feeds me. That's all right. So that's always cool.
Well, thank her. Because of her, we get to read your books.
Yeah, well, in a way. But what I do, I write horror film review books. It started in 2008 when I wrote The Romance of Dracula and had it published in 2010. That is a book concerning all the major Dracula adaptations at that time that I was aware of. After that, I wrote Vampires Everywhere, which seems to have gone nowhere. But it's a very good book. It's an entertaining book. It's Vampires Everywhere. And I think it's because it doesn't deal with Hammer or Dracula as specifics. It deals with the savage vampires of mostly American cinema. You have in there Near Dark, you have in there 30 Days of Night, you have The Thing from Another World with James Arness, one of the first space vampire films.
He was a tall vampire. He was like 6'7".
An intellectual carrot, as it is described in the film. You have The Terror from Beyond Space, the first forerunner of Alien. And there's a lot of good films in there if you want to pick it up and have a look. It's not a bad book. It's a book I'm proud of in the sense that it got finished, because that's the one that I was writing at the time. I had some great material in there, and then everything blew up on me, my laptop, and I lost it all. I had to start from scratch. So the fact it actually got finished is a plus for that one.
Yeah, life has a way of interrupting everybody. We were just going along very well, and then Teddy got sick again in June, and we got told liver bile duct cancer, and that's a pill I mean, any cancer, but that's not an easy one, So I had to put the show on hold because there's just things that have to be done, I'm
glad you didn't put me on hold tonight.
No. And now now I'm going to have to get all the other people that are waiting in line and get them going because of you. So shame on you. No, I'm very... I love interviewing people. I love learning about them. As a kid, you were a junkie on this stuff or not?
I beg your pardon?
You know what I mean.
I never touched the stuff. Teetotal, man.
Okay, I'm not even going to touch that. I'm going to leave that alone. Actually, I'm looking at you. I can see you.
You can see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
That's scary.
You never touch the stuff, huh?
No, I never touch the stuff.
No.
I haven't had a drink for, since 12 o'clock this afternoon. No, I haven't had a drink for 13 years.
Yeah, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I've never smoked pot. I mean, Jesus, I'm so boring. You know, Mother Teresa had a more exciting life than I did, and she's a saint.
Look where Mother Teresa is now. She left it alone.
She scared the crap out of the Pope. The Pope said when he met her,
I haven't got any. You go find your own.
Yeah, she scared him. So when you were a child, because
yes,
I lucked out.
If you could see that, when I was in my mama's arms and all that.
Well, let's be careful how far you go back.
It's that state of affairs really that got me involved with fantasy and horror. Because I was a sickly child. I was always ill, and I first went into a doctor's waiting room. I was about 6 years old, and in them days they had really good magazines in the waiting room. Yeah, and at this time in my life, about 1973, 74, I think it had been 74, and I saw a load of Marvel magazines. You know Marvel comics?
Yep.
And there was one called Dracula Lives #2. And I looked at that cover, and that was it. From there, I was a comic book fan and a Count Dracula fan all at once. It's the very first time I'd become acquainted with anything. And I read that story while I was in the, as I say, I was in the work. There was a few Spider-Men and a few Avengers and things like that. As I said, they were making a big gambit to get into the UK at the time. Mm-hmm. And when I'd finished in that hospital waiting room, my mum after that started buying me every single Marvel title that was going. I mean, I had them all. You know, the British versions, the British prints. And as regards horror movies, but I remember on BBC Two on Saturday nights they used to play a double bill, and it started off with the very first one I saw was The Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney, and Jekyll and Hyde with Frederick March.
Right.
And then every week after that, they'd repeat all the old Universal movies. And then over on the other channel, on ITV, we had The Appointment with Fear, which was all the Hammer films.
Right.
Really, they would have been having first showings at that time. They were films like Scars of Dracula, Taste of Blood of Dracula, Brides of Dracula. And I think I got interested, and I got really hooked because we had no father figure. We'd lost my dad in 1973.
I'm sorry.
That was my escape, I think. You know, the way of handling it, if you like, or things like that. Mm-hmm. But I did it, and I've always had a pencil in my hand from being, you know, in rocking arm stage and things like that. And when I started writing, it was a case of like some kind of exorcism or a therapy to see why this sort of stuff grabs hold of you, you know.
Yeah.
And it's same with, you get these kids, and some do make it, and say, I've always wanted to be an actor, I've always wanted to be this, I've always wanted to be everything. You know, and true to form, I've done practically everything that's on paper somewhere.
I've always wanted to be a serial killer. Wait a minute, never mind.
Okay,
let's
goodbye.
drop that right there.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yes.
No, I never wanted to do that. But television was big. I don't know if it was the same for you over there, but in the 70s and 80s, television was the biggest thing. It was bigger than cinema.
Yeah, I think so. Over here in the 70s, where you had Dark Shadows, I think until like 75, I think they canceled it. So it was still running.
Isn't it about 9 or 10 years? That.
Yeah, the old man, my father, was watching it, and he said, "I think you might like this." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you're nuts," you know. And I missed like the first season of it, and he caught me up. He knew all about this chick and how she was in a school for kids with no parents and all. And but you had that, and I think they brought a lot back with Barnabas being the vulnerable, reluctant vampire who was cursed, and I think that did a lot to help things. But then I was raised with Zachary, and he did all the monster films, and he would have the film cut, and he would have a skit where he would be in the film, and Frankenstein would be looking in a door, and he'd go, "Hey, Frank, how's everything?" And then Frankenstein would turn away, and they'd go right back to the movie, And he introduced a whole new world to kids, but that was in the 50s. Mm-hmm. In the 70s, I had children.
You had Vampire as well over there, didn't you? And
Vampire. Ed Wood was doing his thing. Seattle. You had a lot of springboards to go off of, and the Monster magazine. That was the biggest thing around.
Yes, famous monsters of Filmland.
Filmland, yeah.
Yeah, the Forey Ackerman. Magazines.
He was like a god.
All those things, comic books and film, they pushed me towards writing these books, And I wrote the first one, and it's all right, it's good, I like it. And then I was going to put photographs in there, and my brother suggested I draw the pictures. And I says, "Hang on, I can't do that." And he says, "Yeah, you can." So I drew Max Schreck, and I was very chuffed with it, very pleased, and decided to publish, just on the strength of the picture alone. So I was really batting 1,000 because I'm not sure about the rest of the pictures.
I got to tell you, you are a great artist. You're multi-talented, and for an actor, you need to be.
A man of many talents, most of which go largely ignored, and they do.
Yeah, I know. I love that when I read that, and I said, "Isn't he supposed to be like saying he's great and wonderful?" But you are. Do you have a favorite a monster that appeals to you, or are you just cruising through them all and sizing them up?
No, I like I think Stephen King puts it best in Dance Macabre. He says there's 5 evils. There's the vampire, the werewolf, the thing with no name, and there's 2 more I can't remember, which is shameful. But those 3, the vampire, the werewolf, and the thing with no name, the third one is the Frankenstein monster. The second one, obviously, is werewolf and Dracula. And there's the mummy, and there's the Invisible Man and Jekyll and Hyde. I like all those. I like original stuff. I like original material, and then I like to see the spins that other people put on it. But I always like to see a film that goes back to the roots as well.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
We have a film like The Lost Boys was a big film in '87.
Right.
It was the film event for horror films in '87. And when I watch it, it doesn't go back to anywhere. It has no history for those vampires.
No.
David, Keith Sutherland, just says that we just landed here in the middle of the San Francisco quake, opened this cave, and that was it. We stayed here. They never tell you where they come from. They have no backstory, no character definition or anything. It's just a fact to know that they're actually there. I mean, this was the 1980s.
And it's
everything was changing. Kids didn't run about like Fonzie in the Happy Days anymore. They were dressed up in leathers and dancing away to Bon Jovi and Meatloaf and things like that. Yeah. And they were everything was just happening. That's the thing for the Lost Boys. It's a thing where everything is just happening here and now. You got to live life in the moment. Sleep all day, party all night, and that's the tagline of the film. But that works, even though it doesn't go back to Dracula, it doesn't go back to anything. It's just a film that works for the time and the moment, and it's made a big impact everywhere. As the Lost Boys, you ask anybody, excuse me, at my age or just below, and they'll put Lost Boys either number 1 or number 2 on the top vampire film list.
I don't know about that, but when the old man at the end says the one thing I could never stand about, whatever it is, Santa Paula, whatever, is all the damn vampires. So
line as well.
Yeah, he kind of tells you, yes, they've always been here. You know,
we've always known about it. Yeah, it's always been there. Like we just shut up about it now. It's natural.
Yeah,
it's like things happening on the street now. You get desensitized. You know it happens.
Oh yeah.
Which in some cases it's a really bad state of affairs when kids have got to grow up knowing these things happen. But in my days, I'm glad it was just vampires and werewolves we had to worry about.
Yeah, and drunk fathers and stuff like that. You know, they were the biggie problems you had, or the bully in the playground that just wanted your lunch money, you know, or stuff like that. You know, it was a different world then. Now, although I remember the missile crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and, you know, the whole baloney story, duck and hide, you know, put your head against the wall, duck, or get under the mattress. Yeah. Okay, that's going to save us all. Well, you won't see it coming.
I don't mind things like that. Like you just said, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis. But what? Seriously, in all seriousness, what could you do about it if it got out of hand?
You're right. Yeah, my old man just told me, take your sister, put her under our bed, and just cover her eyes. And that was my job.
Cross your fingers and hope, basically.
Yeah, that was my job, you know. And hang on, we got a cat alert.
That would have been, when was that, the 70s?
No, that was in the 60s. Kennedy was the president. And, it was a scary 12 days, whatever it was. And we had drills in school every day, and everybody was just sitting waiting for Walter Cronkite to say, it's coming, you know.
And it's still coming 55 years later.
Yeah. We're in the same... I said that. We're in the same thing.
How resilient our race is. And everybody's gone through everything, literally. You know, and there's people fighting their own private wars and heartaches and things, and we're still here. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think of the Walking Dead?
Oh, they're saying they're coming up tomorrow. I don't want to see them.
Yeah, I haven't. The Walking Dead, the Walking Dead, the series.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
No, I stopped watching television in 1996.
That was a smart move.
True, and it holds no. It's sat there now in the corner of the room, blank. I never have it on. There's nothing on there that interests me. All I watch now is things on YouTube and videos and DVDs. That's it.
It's a soap opera, albeit a violent soap opera. Somebody
it's based on a comic book. I know that.
Yeah, it's a comic graphic novel. Right, one of those. And I know because when my son was over in Iraq, we sent them tons of this crap, and he got hooked on reading the graphic novels. And I watched the first season, and I said, okay, I want to kill half the cast already. And, you know, it's becoming a soap opera. This chick... Yeah. I don't know. The sheriff's wife had been with everybody except the Maytag man, I guess. You know, so yeah.
I might actually watch it.
You might watch it, yeah. And you know, it's basically a violent soap opera. Somebody last year, this last season, one of the characters that's been in it since day one, day two, gets killed, and somebody said it's too violent. And I thought, him shooting the little zombie girl in the head that in the first episode, that wasn't violent. I mean, yeah, it's a zombie, but it's a little girl, and he blows her brains out. That wasn't violent.
In 30 Days of Night, I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
There's a vampire girl who gets decapitated with an axe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends, I guess, on what your version of violent is.
Yeah.
Do you think that the original monsters and I'm going back to way back when they started this. Universal started it. The Mummy with Boris Karloff. They all had something about them that made them people feel sorry for them.
Yeah, they had talent behind the camera, and that's the only way to describe those old films. They had talent. They had people behind the camera and in front of it that were talented, and this went as far as Hammer. They just had people who cared about what they were putting forward, because they weren't made for big dollars, big pounds, or anything like that. They were made to be shown and to bring in some revenue. That is why they were done. Carl Laemmle made Dracula in 1931 simply because he enjoyed the story. He enjoyed the weird and wonderful.
Right.
Hammer films went on to Hammer Horror because it had been untouched. Literally, we had the American films, the science fiction monsters, and they were weighing in very fast. We'd realised we weren't going to get wiped out by a radioactive plague. And Hammer Films got the idea of Frankenstein, who I might add from the producers of Amicus, gave them the idea for Frankenstein. They revamped that with colour. They were able to afford the colour to make the Curse of Frankenstein, and they had a hit because they tapped into territories that hadn't been done before. But the people that were doing it actually believed in what they were doing.
Right.
And I think we mentioned this before when I talked. If you don't believe in what you're doing, what's the point of doing it? You have to convince people that your heart and soul went into this. Today, you don't see that when it's on the screen. You don't see anything like that. You see a lot of people shouting and carrying on. You see a lot of blood. You see a lot of
body parts, glitter with they've made vampires glitter and sparkle, and they all are beautiful creatures, and I think they've ruined the mystique with it.
You need those monsters, and you do need those monsters in your life, in a sense, to escape. They are fun. You do not need somebody coming glowing with his fangs and telling you he's in love with you. I mean, how many fathers are going to let that into the house?
Yeah, the idea, the one that I think did it well was the Frank Langella Dracula. When he's getting out of the coffin, you just see his boots and his tattered cloak. But as he's moving, suddenly he looks much more, presentable. And that's the illusion that he gives off. But in reality, he's this decrepit piece of crap that, sleeps in his coffin,
That is the vampire mystique. Mm-hmm. They look good to you because they're trying to come back and basically rip your throat out. Mm-hmm. So that mystique, which was actually invented by Lord Byron years and years and years and years ago, when he wrote the very first vampire story. And he invented Lord Ruthven, or Ruthven as it looks written down. Mm-hmm. And Lord Ruthven could go everywhere. It was in polite society. And he charmed the ladies and everything else. And he was also a vampire who wanted to glut himself on your blood, as it was written. That's how it was written in the book. And then when Bram Stoker came along, he decided he wanted more of a Varney the vampire, who worked in society, but he changed as well. He went into the skeletal zombie, did Varney. And Stoker put all that together and came up with Dracula, who couldn't get nowhere in society. He wears clothes that are out of date. He has halitosis. blazing. No, it's Jonathan Harker confesses to his halitosis when he writes about him originally. He has hairs in the palms of his hands, and he really does honk.
Have you ever seen the Louis Jourdan?
Yes, in fact, I'm going to break you some news now. On my Twitter, the lady who plays Lucy, Susan Penhaligon, she started following me last night. So I contacted her and asked her if I could send her a PDF of the Romance of Dracula. and she accepted.
Oh, wow.
How's that?
Yeah.
The blue. So that's amazing. And I have seen Louis Jourdan.
He has it has the hair on his palm. You know, in the he does in the movie. It's like it was a 3-part miniseries, I think, on BBC, and I taped it. I had the conscience to tape it, and he holds out his hand to Harker, and he looks and sees the hair on the palms of his hands. You know, so they did a real good job of following Stoker's. And it's real hard to make Louis Jourdan look crappy. You know what I mean? He was a handsome guy, but they did make him look creepy.
A French seducer in Transylvania. You've got to get that one over your head first. But in fairness to the play itself, Gerald Savory, who wrote it, got every single nuance that's actually in the novel in that 2-part. It was 2 parts over here,
right?
And he got everything in there. Mm-hmm. And that is hard to do for a story like Dracula, and that's why it is still the best adaptation that's been made.
I love it. Yeah.
Post Nosferatu.
And you reviewed that in your book too?
Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. In the Romance of Dracula, the first one. Have you got the Romance of Dracula? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
What do you think it is about these guys? Because when I was young, I always empathized with the monsters. Now, the monsters they're just too weird for even me. And I got to tell you, that takes a lot.
Like
the one, oh God, I don't want to say the actor's name, but it's like Glitter or something like that. The name is, you know, and the one actor, he plays the matriarch of the vampire family, and he's got a southern accent, and he's from England, and, you know, I think it's Beautiful Creatures is the name of it, right?
Beautiful Creatures. Oh, it's Dougray Scott.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to,
they have the real vampire harnessed inside this room, and it plays like something like Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. You know, they're. I liked the last werewolf, the one with Benito, whatever. I liked that. They went back to the original story. You see, I'm so impressed with these people.
You're like me. You're a purist. You like to see the original thing.
I do. When something's good, leave it alone.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What it is with the Beautiful Creatures, and I'll tell you something else. The other one with Sam Neill. Oh, what's that called? Oh dear.
I can't think.
This is terrible. It's all right. It's a film you don't worry about. But they show their savage vampires, but they show them without any backstory and without any real interest, and that's why they don't look right today. And usually, when you see the real vampire at the end of it, it's an animatronic monster that's been CGI'd together and everything else. And who cares? It can't emote. It can't say anything. It can't go, "I want to drink your blood," or anything like that. It's just there, you know.
Do you know?
That's like facing the bully in the playground when you're old enough to stand up to him and say, "Oh, get away."
It's Beautiful Creatures, and the guy was Malcolm Ravenwood was his name in it. And it was like, don't we have any freaking Americans in the South that can play these parts? You know, does everybody have to come from England and play all the parts? All the cast of The Walking Dead are English.
I'm going to lose a lot of American fans here. Seriously, I'm probably lose a lot of American fans here when I say I don't think filmmakers like Americans to be nasty.
Right. Yeah.
That's why you either have an Australian, you either have a Canadian, you either have a British, or you either have a Frenchman. Nobody cares about anyone. They shoot them all.
What's the one? God, I can't think of it. I could see his face. I can't think of it. Where it was in the last 15 or so years, where the movie crew is supposed to be making the original vampire Nosferatu.
Shadow of Vampire.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I love where he's getting hammered around the fire and he's telling them, his sad life and how bummed he is about everything. I love that.
That's a great film, actually. It's a brilliant film. Willem, excuse me,
Willem
Dafoe and John Malkovich.
Yeah, I love that.
And I actually saw that on the big screen in 2002 when it came out. It's a brilliant film.
It is. I love him. He's like so pathetic, and then he kills the one. He says, "I told you, it was a snack."
Yeah. I have a similar idea concerning the 1931 Spanish Dracula. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to let you in on the plot because I haven't written it all yet, and I don't want it to be stolen.
Okay.
Because you never know who's going to listen to these things.
Right.
But I do have a thing running around my head about the Spanish version of the Lugosi film with like an intermingling, etc., etc., etc. But I think that Shadow of the Vampire is a great film.
Yeah.
And I don't watch it enough. I have it on a DVD somewhere. I don't watch it enough.
Yeah, I think it was a great tip of the hat to the original movie with yet a new turn, a new twist to it. Getting back to your newest project is the werewolf book, and you review all the werewolf. How many movies have there been concerning werewolves?
How many? Ooh,
yeah, did you know, or did you count them all?
No, I didn't count them all. I'd be here all day. I've got an epilogue at the back which just lists the werewolf films from 1913 up to 2012. Because I think the first werewolf film was in 1913, and it goes up to 2012 with the last film being yet another Underworld sequel. Why they bother with the first one is beyond me. But I think it's his fifth sequel now. That thing. Anyway, so I have like a filmography at the back. I look at, I think it's 21 werewolf films. Or it might be 16 or 21, I'm not sure. But it covers the films that I like, the films that I remembered, and the best films that are involved there, because those that I left out are films where the werewolf is just like a guest star. Right. Or the films where they run in packs, which is just basically another rehash of The Howling. And the teeny films, I don't like that. I just hate those films. Monster teeny films, I think they're pointless. It's like young adult horror. I'm not a big fan of that either. But people read it. I mean, it gets eaten by the loads,
Monster Squad?
I love Monster Squad.
I love that. I love that guy standing there saying, "Lock me up! Lock me up!" He's begging him, "Please shoot me! Shoot me! Shoot me!" Yeah. I think, and that's what the werewolf is. He's doing something he doesn't want to do.
That was how Lon Chaney basically ended up with his character. It took them 5 movies to do that 5-minute segment in Monster Squad, and so after that, he needed something else. The wolf really needed something else. It needed to go back to its roots, and it came back with the best werewolf film, Curse of the Werewolf for Hammer in 1960. Because that literally has everything. Right. It has the romance. It's a love story. He meets her for the first time, falls in love, and she stops all his animal rages. It's a fairy tale in the sense that it's set in the Never Never Land. It's got its own marquis, who's like an old ogre, and it's got just everything. The werewolf, for my money, is the best werewolf on screen, and it just works out in every single capacity. Does werewolf, and from there, I move on to excuse me. I go into the really, not really bad, but the pretty dire werewolf films that were made in Britain, which are The Beast Must Die for Amicus, and what's the other one? Legend of the Werewolf.
Okay.
Both of them with Peter Cushing in possibly two of his worst written character parts, and both very low budget, and both with possibly the worst werewolves on screen. Even though Legend of the Werewolf is like an update of Curse of the Werewolf, and possibly Roy Ashton did the same makeup for both of them. But you can see where the talent lies when you watch Curse of the Werewolf, and where it doesn't lie when you watch Legend of the Werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're entertaining. They
right.
Can, you can watch them for an hour and 20 minutes and throw your brain into neutral and sit down. You won't lose any sleep over them or anything like that. And then but it does actually illustrate how bad things were getting in the mid-70s. So we move on to 1980 and we get The Howling. No one has seen anything like The Howling.
Yeah, it was really gory.
Yeah, but those mechanical makeup effects, for the first time that that anything had been seen like that at the time. I mean, I think the first time we got into this new effects craze was when we saw Alien in 1979, and we saw the face hugger seep through John Hurt's helmet and into his stomach and then explode, and then we got the monster. And for the first time, it's probably the first monster where you don't see the zipper up the back, the rubber suit.
Right.
You just see this big monster with no eyes, just all teeth, and this thing that shoots out and gets you by the throat or whatever it wants to grab. And then you've got Sigourney Weaver in space, like a floating horror house in space, and she just hits that button and sends it out into space.
And she's worried about the dog.
And that's all that's on her mind. Where's the cat?
The cat, right? The cat. Yeah, I knew it was an animal she was worried about. Where's the cat? Where's the cat?
One of the other characters. The only thing he can worry about is the cat. He's shushing all over the ship, and there's this big 8-foot monster walking about and doing them all in. And that's the first. I think that's the first time you can really say effects took a hold. And then we had The Howling. We got The American Werewolf. And then we had Scanners where the guy's head literally explodes with his makeup. And that's what this book really concentrates on. It concentrates on the changes in makeup. It doesn't go into big, deep discussion of how it was done, because I don't know how it was done. Right. I know the materials they used. I know the approximate time that Lon Chaney had his head shouldered between pins to stop him from moving, and things like that. But this was the first time that animatronics had been involved, and bladders that filled up with air, so that it looks like the skin's breaking and everything else. And that's what this concentrates on.
Excuse me, American werewolf. In London. My favorite part of that whole movie, because I think the whole movie basically sucks, is the part where they're all in the movie theater telling him to kill himself. The victims.
That's my favorite bit.
That's my favorite scene. The rest of that movie, they could take it and just chuck it. But that's my favorite scene. You'll feel better. Kill yourself, David. Yeah. Just kill yourself. I think that's the best part of that movie. But there again, the animatronics were great. The way they did it. It
is an overrated film, but it is a first of its type, and you can't remake it.
No.
Because you haven't got David Norton, you haven't got... you've still got them, but they're a bit old nowadays to do it. And you haven't got Rick Baker, and you haven't got the surroundings of the time.
Right.
It was a film that literally had to be made specifically at that time. And it made... the impact that it made. They're still copying it now.
Yeah, I think that... when I look at a movie, I try to keep it in the context of when it was made. And I usually come out and say, for the time it was made, it was good. It was a good stab at it. That movie I have a little trouble with at any time it would have been made. I think maybe it would have been better if it had been made earlier when they didn't have so much of the animatronic stuff. I think they relied too much on all the nonsense with his face moving out. I liked the way they did it with Cheney. You know, he gradually turned his, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know, but that's me.
Well, doing it that way as well with the Cheney way, you still have the actor to emote, to do all those things. For example, when they had the howling, those wolf heads were just wolf heads that had been made, you know, and that used rods and things and power cables and all that. And as you say, we had Lon Chaney to do that. We had Oliver Reed in The Curse of the Werewolf to do that.
Right.
They were still acting behind the makeup. Now, but when you see a film today, you don't even see the makeup. It's all CGI'd. It literally is all computer generated.
The last one with Del Toro, most of that was computer generated. You know, Lawrence, you know me. Lawrence, you know me. He's not there. It's totally, you know, whatever. You know, and it's a good movie. I like it. But again, you kind of lose him.
That's right. That's why Rick Baker stepped down afterwards. He did The Wolfman, then he did Maleficent, which I still haven't seen. I've got to see that film.
I've seen it. It's good. You'll like it.
It is a good film, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've not seen it. I drew a picture of her a couple of years ago, and every time I post it, it gets great. It gets a lot of comeback.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie was Maleficent, and it's a different take on the whole story. I didn't expect the storyline to be what it was. And
is it a Snow White, or is it a Red Riding Hood thing, or what?
Who is it? Sleeping Beauty, and Maleficent makes her go into a sleep, but it's to protect her because she's actually her daughter.
Right, okay. You see, I don't have kids, so I don't get to see these types of films.
Do yourself a favor. Don't have kids. You'll see better movies.
Yeah, okay.
Or grandchildren.
Yeah. Because I do get bombarded with pictures from Cinderella, and I think the new one's Ballerina or something.
I haven't seen them.
Right, well that's a new one that's out. And Beauty and the Beast, they've redone that again.
Yeah, I don't know what they did. The Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, and now they're talking about doing the Lion King, and I don't know why. As far as I'm concerned, Scar. There's only one. The father. That's James Earl Jones' voice. And Scar, I don't think anybody plays a better weasel than Jeremy Irons. You know, oh goody, I'm going to be the king. Oh goody, you know. Okay. He was great in that. The voices. I don't know why they're doing this. I think they've run out of ideas.
Revenue. That's why they're doing it.
That's
the only reason they do it now. They do it to make money. To make money. They use same titles to draw you in.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's basically it. And Dracula, I think, has lost his appeal for the cinema.
Yeah.
They did the series in 2013, which I still haven't seen. I didn't want to see. I saw the trailer. That was enough. And then I heard that the star who was doing the part got mislaid or something. He didn't turn up for some reason.
He was getting in trouble with things he shouldn't be doing, which was affecting his punctuality on the sets. You know, if you can't depend on an actor or an actress, they're not much good to you.
So they canned that series. It was just after that The Walking Dead surfaced, I think. And they also did, they've got a series from Dusk Till Dawn, the Tarantino film. They've done a series of that. In fact, I think that's in its second or third season. Which I still haven't seen. I don't really want to. But I really am, as I say, an old school horror
Yeah,
fanatic.
yeah. I'm huge with Arthur Conan Doyle. I love the Holmes stories, and they did a series. They did like 6 or 7 episodes of Houdini and Doyle, and even though it was very liberal on the making up and stuff,
Yep.
I did enjoy it. I mean, it's purely for enjoyment. If you're a purist, and I do like my Holmes, like Jeremy Brett. They're more pure, the better for me. I don't mind Robert Downey Jr. It's just he's a little bit more than I think that he's more what's his name, Iron Man, than he is.
He's too American.
He's too Iron Man in his actions and behavior.
Yeah.
But he is a great. Those movies of Sherlock Holmes are good with him and the other kid that's in with him. I like it if it's entertainment. I mean, what I notice with monster movies is it's just like people who get involved in unexplained phenomena. Everything has a cycle. For maybe 5 to 10 years, people are doing, all they talk about is UFOs. Then they're talking about ghosts. Then they're talking about doppelgangers. And then they're talking, you know what I mean? And I think the monsters are the same way. They have the vampires. Then they move into the mummy. Then they move into the werewolf. Then they move into the next whatever. They have cycles.
I know what you're saying. I think in the last 4 years or so, we've had 3 different Frankenstein adaptations. Mm-hmm. And they've just basically gone past quietly because nobody is scared of Frankenstein anymore.
Yeah, it's a little hard to be afraid of Frankenstein when you're in a war over in Iraq, and you're seeing, and actually, for anybody who doesn't know, Iron Man was inspired by a soldier who had lost both his arms, and what's his name? The guy from DC, whatever his name is, Stan Lee. He saw the picture of him, and that gave him the idea of a man made of iron, Iron Man. And he was inspired by a real veteran who lost both his arms in World War II. He's actually in that movie, The Time of Our Lives, The Time of Our Lives, or Our Best Years, something like that, with Dana Andrew. Pardon me?
The Best Years of Our Lives.
Right. That's a great movie. But that's what inspires ideas. And I think the monsters all are inspired somehow by things that we wish we could do. You know what I mean? Who wouldn't want to live forever?
Excuse me. I did some research yesterday not about Frankenstein, but about transplants. There was one of these silly trend things that comes on Facebook.
Right.
And it said about a rat having a head transplanted onto its back. Mm-hmm. So I thought to myself, well, when did this sort of thing really start happening? Because I think towards the end of last year, I actually saw a man with a new hand. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, I've got to look at this. And the first hand transplant took place in 1964.
Right.
And I mean, that's more Frankenstein than anything. Mm-hmm. So I think the advancement in medical science itself has killed the shock of Frankenstein. I mean, transplanting heads now, that's what they're talking about.
That's what they're talking about within the next few years of trying, and that's... And, I always go back, there was this, and I think the name of it was The Marathon Man in the 60s. Yes. I'm not sure. Do you know? He had this blood type, a rare blood type that the rich guy had. So the rich guy had him kidnapped and brought to this island so that if he needed the blood, he had a blood transplant and all. And there's been movies where they're on an island and they're doing the parts. They're using these clones for parts, and it does make you ask, is it possible?
It all goes back to Shelley and H.G.
Right.
Wells. You know, because you had H.G. Wells doing the Island of Dr. Moreau,
Right.
as well, where he was experimenting with animals and humans. And today we really are desensitized to that. It can happen. You can go down to your local practitioner and say, "Oh yeah, we can get you a new finger. We can do this for you, and stick an ear on your head and make you look lovely."
Yeah.
You know, Frankenstein has no shock value anymore, except for the actors they get to play him. But that's another matter. You know,
I love it. I mean, I love the story, and I did not care for the one with, who was it, the last one they did, the big movie. I can't think of it. It was De Niro. Was he? Who was it?
You're talking about the Kenneth Branagh one.
Yeah. I was actually disgusted by most of the movie. That was rough, watching with the afterbirth and all that.
The guy who wrote that did The Shawshank Redemption, Frank Darabont, and I was reading about that a couple of weeks ago, and he said Kenneth Branagh opened his mouth and started talking, and the writer himself, he said, I thought to myself, where did I put all this shouting in? It says that he grew up with the Peter Cushing films,
right?
You know, the straight thinking, straight talking,
methodical
character. It's and all of a sudden Kenneth Branagh came on with this big operatic shouting and carrying on all over the place.
He thought he was crossing Hamlet with Frankenstein.
I don't know what they thought they were crossing, but I don't know. It didn't do anything for me.
I didn't care for it. I thought a lot of it was disgusting. Actually, but I will give him his credit. And he made a movie, Dead Again, with his first wife.
Yes, and I've seen that.
That's a great movie. And I actually had Teddy's caretaker here last week, and she got to see it, and she loved it. And I thought that was just a great film. Derek Jacobi's in it. Or Jacoby, however you want to pronounce it. He was in it, and I thought that was a great movie. But yeah, his Frankenstein did nothing for me. I really didn't care for it.
No. In the Werewolf book, I write about Wolf with Jack Nicholson. Are you a fan of that one?
Yeah, I like where they're in the bathroom and he pisses on the guy's shoes. See, I'm weird. Yeah, you see the parts that most people would go, ooh, I'm like, go. Yeah, do it. Lay that card down, baby.
Well, that one. As in Werewolves, I do mention that in the early 90s, they made 4 films that are essentially B movies, but they have star caliber names attached to them. These were Dracula with Francis Ford Coppola, Frankenstein with Kenneth Branagh, Interview with the Vampire with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And also Wolf, which is the werewolf. You have 2 vampire stories, 1 Frankenstein and 1 werewolf story. Wolf is the only one that is an original screenplay. It's not based on any written down story or anything like that. And it is the best film out of the 4. And again, it's Rick Baker doing the effects. It takes things back to like Werewolf of London. The wolf doesn't show much. It is really a performance-based film. It's all Jack Nicholson. It's all James Spader, who's brilliant in it. He's great in that. And also you've got Christopher Plummer and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
The cast is legendary in that. I don't know how much it cost to put together, but it must have cost loads of money. And as I say, it's a big budget film, like the other 3, that going in for driving shocks and special effects. And that's what changed for me the whole system of how films were being made at the time.
Yeah.
I can remember going to see Wolf in 1994 and thinking, "What? Jack Nicholson's in it? What?"
Yeah.
Hey, and it just done Batman a few years earlier. It just done Witches of Eastwick, and if you can take it further back, it also done The Shining, which is basically the start of all this big pomp and circumstance that it takes to make a film, whether good or bad. You're gonna it's going to get to some kind of a status because of the stars that are in it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Wolf, it can stand on its own because it is a good film. It is well directed. It's well written. It's possibly a bit long. It could have been told in half the time, but it does keep you on edge. And anybody could have played Will Randall, but Nicholson wanted to do it himself. He'd had the thing for like 12 years, and he made the film, and it's a good film. It is the best one. You've got your Will for London, your Wolfman, your Curse of the Werewolf, and Wolf, that really are the four mainstays of the werewolf movie.
Right.
All the rest are elaborations, or takeoffs, or copies, if you like. But those four movies, if you take those four, if those are the only four werewolf movies you'll ever watch, they're the only werewolf movies you need to watch.
Right.
Because they have everything, without going overboard, without stopping. They have the fairy tale, they have the true love, they have the everyman, which is very important in a werewolf film. The wolf has to be someone who everybody knows and everybody ignores or everybody loves or whatever. And this, where the Del Toro film fell down, they made him an actor. Now, an actor, whatever sort he does, has some kind of celebrity status. People think he's great or whatever, people think he's lousy, but he is not an everyman. He's locked into a certain demographic, yeah?
Yeah.
Will Randall in Wolf is an everyman, is a trodden down editor. Leon in Curse of the Werewolf is just an orphan, literally raised by a guy who found his mother floating in the water. Werewolf of London is a professor. He's not a big professor, although he must have some money because he has CCTV in 1935.
Right.
So he's got some kind of standing somewhere.
And he can't afford to travel.
Exactly, but Lon Chaney is the ultimate wolfman everyman.
Yeah.
Well,
he's like the guy that didn't look for it and got it.
That's it. That's what the film's like. That is what the Wolfman mystique is all about. A good man gets bitten by a wolf on the night of the full moon. Murders and poultry ensue, and then he changes back to his self when somebody shoots him with a lead bullet or a silver bullet or whatever. It doesn't matter. But that is the basic mystique of that tale. And all those four films that I mentioned, if you watch those four, you don't have to watch any more. Unless you want to, obviously.
Okay, we're running out of time. Carolyn Monroe, she just recorded one of your shorts. Want to talk about that?
That came 2 years ago. I got an email from Craig Johnson Carol Gill, a friend of mine on Facebook. Carol Gill said, do I want to be involved with this? And it was something called Fragments of Fear. She said they're asking for short stories. So I got in touch with Craig Johnson, and I wrote the story, sent it through to him, and then he asked me to shorten it, edit it a little bit, so I did that. And he sent me an email saying, you're going to be read by Caroline Monroe, and I'm still recovering from the shock.
She does a wonderful job, and it was great. I listened to it last night.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Well, as I say, I'm still recovering from it because I grew up, I was 6 years old when I first saw Get Out of the Water, on a Navy rum Lamb's Navy advert, and been a fan ever since. So,
okay. Tell everybody where they can find your books.
Amazon. UK, Amazon.com, Create Space at Amazon. And apparently there's some smaller booksellers are online. Ebook, what do they call it now? But they have Amazon have affiliate companies online as well that also sell. I'm literally global. I'm everywhere.
When people look you up, they have to look up Charles E. Butler.
Yes.
Because another Charles Butler comes up. Or look up the book Werewolves, the other book, The Romance of Dracula, Vampires Everywhere, Vampires Under the Hammer, Vampires in The Final Hunt, Detective in A Scarlet Vein.
Detections in a Scarlet Vein. Everybody should read that. It's fantastic. They might
Yeah.
not understand it, but they'll have a good laugh. It's funny. Seriously, it really is mental.
What were you on? Send me some.
No, I wasn't on anything. I was playing with the language and playing with idioms, playing with just verse in general, just talking. And there's only actually one thing that actually happens in the whole thing, and he gets his leg chopped off. But that's about as far as I'm telling you. It's a 24-page Kindle. It's not. It's too small to go into a book, and it is just crazy.
I do good with crazy.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should read it. It's worth it. $2.49 or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
I would like everybody to read Detections in a Scarlet Vein, simply because it's stupid. And there's a few drawings up there as well. And
I look at Facebook a lot and say that, wow, very interesting, but is stupid. You know, remember Laughing? Do you remember that at all?
Ron and Martin.
Yeah, they're back on now, on one of those off channels, Me Channel, and they play that, and they got, the guy, very interesting, but it's stupid,
Yeah.
I love that, and I put it on for Teddy because that's about as much as he can handle.
Well, yeah, the big one is, at the moment, it's Werewolves, Children of the Full Moon. I'm hoping, towards the end of the year, to finish the Frankenstein book as well. Because I'm a third of the way into that, and it's coming along well. So look out for that one. And then I'll have to literally start the Phantom of the Opera, which will be called the Phantom Unmasked. And it does literally read like the Romance of Dracula. It's going to have a synopsis and then a full review of each film that's been made of the Phantom of the Opera. And that's my running for the next year and a half, basically, because that's what I'll be doing.
So let me ask you, you do all this writing. Do you have any actual friends that you go out and visit with?
No.
No, they got you chained to a desk or something, huh?
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, since I got the laptop, it's literally I've just been stuck here like this.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, laptops have ruined it for everybody.
You have to do it. It's no good saying I'm going to do this. I'm going to. I like to tell people when they come. I like to say, "Well, I've done it." It's not an ego thing or anything else. But if you're going to talk about something, the first thing is you've got to do it. You've got to fight that war, basically.
Well, my claim to fame is my son. Some people's kids want to be doctors. Some kids want to be lawyers. Mine signed up to go to Atlanta jail for 60 days for free. He let them arrest him and put him in as a prisoner to find out how drugs are being distributed in the Atlanta's Fulton prison. And when he came to me, you know how it is. I'm Irish, so when your son comes to you and says, "I want you to keep an open mind," your first thought is, he's gay, he's going to be a priest, or he got arrested. And I knew he wasn't gay, and I knew he wasn't a priest. So I said, "When are you going to jail?" He says, I didn't get arrested. I volunteered. I mean, what mother couldn't be proud of that? And it's on A&E. And I got to tell you, it's like the seventh one is coming on tomorrow night. And it's no picnic. I mean, it's kind of like Rollerball or one of those movies where once they get them in these pods, it's the strongest survives, It's not like we would think prison is organized. And we envision prison like they open the door, let you out, you walk in a line, go out to the yard. No, these guys, they just, the guards all get in this locked area, and they just press a button, and all these guys just come out into this large pod. And what he's most interested in is how they're dealing with people coming back from Iraq with brain trauma and post-traumatic stress. And as it turns out, there's 2 more Marines there. And one has post-traumatic stress, so he's trying to keep him from getting in trouble and getting hurt. But I said, Jesus, I couldn't make that up. If I went and said, hey, guess what my kid is going to do, nobody would believe me. I swear to God, nobody would believe me.
And when has he done this already?
It's on now. It's on every Thursday, and then they play it. You go on A&E's site, and it's A&E 60 Days in Atlanta, and it'll show you the cast. They call them the cast. The one girl left. She said that the prisoners there weren't her caliber. I don't know what she thought she was going to walk into. It's Atlanta's jail. I mean,
They're actually living with prisoners.
Oh, yes. And the prisoners do not know that these are actors.
Right.
Yeah, so, and if they do anything wrong and get caught by the guards, they get to stay there as prisoners. So it's a real dicey situation, and I was not happy when my son told me he was doing it. So he says to me, Mom, I've never done it before. And I said, I've never screwed a chicken in Bamberger's window, but I'm not going to go out and try to do it, Matt, just because I never did it. He's 41.
He's 41?
Yeah.
Well, I think he'd be safer in the showers then.
Actually, it's really funny that 2 of them in last week's episode said that they thought the old guy, and they're looking at Matt. I think he might be in the program. And the one young Marine says, I'm not afraid to ask him because, he's an old guy. I broke up laughing. Says,
how long did you do it for?
He was there 60 days. 60 days.
He's completed the 60 days now. He's done that.
Yeah, he just completed it. So he got out alive, but I don't know what went on. I just saw one episode where they cuffed them so tight with those Ziploc things that when they went to cut them off, they cut his arm open. So, it's an interesting thing. It's not for everybody, but then my family is like that. We're never everybody's cup of tea.
But if they're again, this takes us back to the way of filming and horror films and things. If they're showing things like that on television these days, how can you be frightened of the werewolf, of the vampire, of the mummy?
Right, because they're in the next room next to you now. They really are. Yep. You've got people that are unstable, that have guns and knives, and people say to me, well, guns should be outlawed. You know what? Give me a knife and I'll show you what I can do with it. If you want to hurt somebody, you will find a way to do it. You don't need a gun. So that's scary.
That's a pleasant note to end on, isn't it? Yeah.
But again, Charles E. Butler is the name you guys are going to look for, and his book, Werewolves, Children of the Full Moon, is out, and he's working on a Frankenstein book, and it's always a wonderful time talking to you.
And it's always wonderful being asked to do it. That's always good. Thank you very much.
I love you, and I'm going to end the recording.
Somewhere over the rainbow, birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow, while can't.
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. And God bless you and yours.
A big career out of it at the time.
Yeah.
Unseen. for in 1948.
Yeah, they were smart. They were smart guys. You know, when people say, "Oh, comedians," are they're just jokesters. It's very hard to be funny. It's a lot of work to be funny. It's a lot of work to have that timing. And when you meet these guys in person and then you go, wow, they're not really very funny. Robin Williams is a perfect example. People said if there was one person, if he was in a room with one person, he would just sit there. Get two more people in there, and he was on. And I think that's true of a lot of comedians. It's almost an alter ego. It's very hard to be funny and keep that level of excellence. And Abbott and Costello did it.
I think it was Robin Williams that said it. It took an elevator ride, or a lift in Britain. It took an elevator ride with Woody Allen, and both of them just stood looking at the floor for about 10 or 15 floors.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
word.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at other Johnny Cash, put Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson in an elevator, they'll be, hey man, how you doing? What are you doing? You cutting anything? You put actors and actresses in. Are you doing anything?
So I've come sort of full circle of all the werewolf movies, from Jack Pierce through to Rick Baker, Dick Smith, and we finished with Rick Baker's werewolf effects for The Wolfman.
Yeah, so, I think that when as far as the werewolf movies go, I think they got the cream of the crop for makeup and all of that. I really liked the Del Toro one, the last one. I really liked it. What did you think?
I love it. I honestly think it's a better film than the original.
Oh, no. But I'll beat you up for that one.
Well, it's in the book why I think so. But obviously, the script that Kurt Sienmak wrote for the original is iconic. Yeah. He brought gypsies in. He brought in the pentagram. He brought in the full moon. Has been a catalyst for the werewolf. He brought in all those things that people today believe are genuine. He brought them into like a different folklore that had gone before. It was brand new at the time. Mm-hmm. The only thing that spoils the Wolfman for me with Lon Chaney is that it's very easy to parody. Right. You have those lines he gave Lon Chaney, and Lon Chaney said,
Lon Chaney Jr. They didn't want Crichton Chaney, and that's the real sin of that his life. He was a good actor. It's just a shame. So you got a new book out. What it's about werewolves, which Lon Chaney Jr. is famous for, right?
He's famous for The Wolfman. It's called Werewolves, and it talks about 20 different werewolf films ranging from 1935 Werewolf of London with Henry Hull.
I love that movie.
And it finishes with Benicio del Toro's The Wolfman, 2010.
Yeah. I love that, the Henry Hull movie. And it's kind of the Benito del Toro one kind of worked the same idea. They had gone into the mountains and they found the flower, that kind of thing. So they kind of blend those two movies a little bit, didn't they?
It sort of comes full circle with me as well, because I started watching films really in the 70s, early 80s. And early 80s was when we got The American Werewolf with Rick Baker's makeup effects, and The Howling with Rob Bottin. And The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro is possibly the last time that Rick Baker did a werewolf film. He decided he was going to retire after that. He's done every single film. 5 films later, he's still saying the same lines. When the moon's full, I turn into a wolf, and it gets a bit crazy.
So do 500,000 other guys.
That's Luke Costello. That's my favourite comeback. I love that one. 20 million other guys. Yeah. My favourite, actually, my favourite line, the Abbott and Costello, is Bud Abbott when he goes, "Help me a little bit. Do I have to do all the work?"
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Yeah, they took that to a whole new level, and it was very hard for Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. because they were accustomed to being like regimented, and these two guys actually had actors coming in and pulling gags on them to break up the monotony, and these two guys were not accustomed to that.
They were the first double acts, I think, to do that. I mean, you've got it all over. You've got it all over today, television and things like that. We started in the 70s with Morecambe and Wise. We have Anton Deck. I mean, they're British comedians you probably never heard of. And they in the 70s, Morecambe and Wise had all the big name stars on their shows. You know, the big thing was that they came on and didn't get paid anything and things like that, and it went down really well. But Abbott and Costello were the first comedians to actually do that, to build themselves with famous faces and to make a...
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
My guest is Charles E Butler. He has been to the lair before, so he knows where the water puddles are. So there's no excuse. He's pounding away on his keyboard, which I can hear. Welcome back to my lair.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pounding on the keyboard. I'm typing about the old television Frankenstein movies at the moment. Tales of Frankenstein and the Tales of Tomorrow with Lon Chaney. Have you heard of that one?
Not really. Not the Tales of Tomorrow with Lon Chaney? No.
Well, Tales of Tomorrow was made in 1952, and Lon Chaney Jr. was playing the monster for television.
Oh, okay.
And in those days, they filmed live, as you know, and the notorious story about this one is that when he went on, he was drunk as a skunk, or a rodent, or whatever you say over there.
I am aware of this story, yes. Okay,
and
yeah.
He thought they were rehearsing, and he was supposed to break furniture all over the place. He's setting it down really gently and swearing like a docker. So amazing stuff. Good.
Yeah.
Actually, he's very belligerent, intimidating monster in that. It's really good.
I think the kid never got his credit. I think he was an excellent actor. I mean, he proved that in Of Mice and Men. But everybody wanted